This is the Astrology Show podcast with Jessica Adams.
Thanks, Shane. This is your Astrology and Tarot for the week starting October 28. Now, do you have Scorpio factors in your birth chart? A new moon at 9 Scorpio on the 1st of November is a new beginning with your bank account, inheritance, mortgage, house, apartment, shares, business, legacy, valuables, and or your charity. If it's your birthday this week, then happy birthday. You'll move, renovate, redecorate, or invest in real estate November to February. It's life-changing. Babies born this week are more Aries than they are Scorpio. Sports suits them, playing it or supporting it. Famous birthdays include Larry Mullen Jr., who is 63 on October 31. Adamant, who is 70 on November 3. James Honeyman Scott would have been 68 on November 4. Chris Difford is 70 on the same day. Happy birthday, Chris. I'm using the Lenormand cards for you this week instead of the tarot. The nice thing about Lenormand is you can interpret the picture on a pure psychic level, even as I tell you what the symbol is. Aries, ring. Taurus, nest. Gemini, garden. Cancer, child. Leo, house. Virgo, letter. Libra, tree. Scorpio, lady. Sagittarius, book. Capricorn, bear. Aquarius, mountain. And Pisces, ship. Aries, well, this new moon, Diana and Mercury in Scorpio, rules joint financial issues like a shared mortgage or property investment or a family inheritance, the tax department, or the car that you share with your son. It's about money, houses, flats, possessions, assets and resources that work one, two, or more ways between everyone involved. With Diana in Scorpio, this does appear to be freedom to be your own person. No commitments and no binding ties. And that may very well apply to somebody else who is very much the free and independent spirit. Looking at the whole chart as you go through October 28, we see Mercury, the midheaven, the Sun and Diana all there in the 8th house of your chart, which rules relationships, which are about the bank as well as the bedroom and very much the family. So typically an inheritance, for example, as I've mentioned, and sometimes it's just about somebody that wants to split the finances with you as well as the relationship. At the moment, you're coming up to a Uranus-Mercury opposition, which is all about a break with the past. So there's a couple of things here about quite a new phase for you in November. One of them is the new moon ahead, and the other one is this Uranus clash in the heavens. You've had it every year since 2018, so it's really no big deal. But it always marks the end of one year, really, and the start of the next. So you could say that you're calling in 2025 before it even happens. The other thing to say about your finances is, of course, that the unpredictable continues with Uranus in Taurus, and that holds right through to next year. But it does get easier next year, as at last you will see the beginning of the end of what is really an ongoing revolution. This transit, which began for you in 2018, brought you the last thing you ever expected to happen. And that may have been COVID in 2020 or another seismic event. However, what you are now doing is navigating your way through the short term in order to sort out next year. By now, you are in your stride with surfing the waves of change. You are used to the unexpected and the unpredictable and the electrical storms that blow in and blow out with your money, the house, the business, or the apartment. Therefore, you're taking this week in your stride, but you are up for a new beginning. And I think the most compatible transit in your chart is definitely Diana in Scorpio, just because she's such a symbol of feminism. This is either you if you're a woman, or it's a woman in your life who does not want commitment. She does not want the ties that bind. And therefore, she has quite an unusual approach towards everything that you might share together. This is going to be a story for you if you have a major question about a partnership, be it professional or be it marriage. And there is karma here with this person, which would not end until you get to January 2025, when at last the South Node goes out of Libra. If you are one of those Aries people who's chiefly concerned with a partner or an ex-partner, then you have to go through the motions in many respects until January next year, because the situation is so repetitive. But there will be settlement, and what you're experiencing now owes a great deal to what happened 18 or 19 years before. Taurus. You will either experience Scorpio season via your duet, so that's a professional duet, a marriage, a relationship, or your duel, so for example, a divorce, a career rival, a love rival, and so on. It's also true that November could so easily be about both at the same time, so the duet and the duel, the wife and the deputy, and the opponent. So really this week is about examining the scales. Mercury in Scorpio in your 7th house is about what we said, what you signed, what I think I said, and what I will or will not sign in the weeks ahead. When we go to your chart and have a look at what's going on, it's pretty clear that this is a short-term situation. Therefore, by November, you're really out of the discussions or the paperwork, and some of you will already have agreed to disagree or just agreed. Your other half or the other side then is very much in the spotlight, and there is a question here about independence and freedom for you, he or she. In fact, independence and freedom are the order of the day, as Diana holds sway in Scorpio for quite some time. Looking around your horoscope, it's also quite true that you need to be alone as much as you need to be sorting out your other half or the other side, because there's such a huge stellium in the sign of Aries, one sign behind you. This is really about solitude that helps you discover your spirit, your soul, or your psyche, whether you are religious or not, whether you are psychic or not, or seeing a psychologist or not. You can't do these things with other people. So this week, with the North Node in Aries, Salacia, Chiron, Fortuna, to say the least, tells you that shutting the door is sometimes quite necessary. And for some Taurus people, that's happening anyway for whatever reason. You do have quite a lot to process on the inside, and you need to be alone in order to hear the voice inside that tells you what's right for you and what makes sense and what perhaps does not. This is an even bigger issue for you next year, Taurus, because next year you also have this mighty transit of both Saturn and Neptune going into this very solitary side of your horoscope. So in a way, this is a nod to the future, whether you're analysing your dreams, seeing a priest, or doing self-help. At the moment, you have every excuse in the world to tell other people that you do actually need to have a bit of the evening or the weekend to be quite alone. The other thing that's showing up in your horoscope this week you're already aware of, and that is the big sign-off with a long-running matter involving foreigners or foreign people around the 19th of November. This occurs because Pluto is in the very final stages of his transit through Capricorn, and for you this rules the 9th house of people from other cultures and nationalities and faraway places. The sign-off is going to take ages to happen, but it will happen no later than December 7. So that might also be on your mind. Finally, when we look at your potential right now about next year, it's very good in terms of a sibling or a cousin. The reason for this is that you have a lot of factors building in your 3rd house. Therefore, if you need to solve any issues with a brother, sister, or cousin, or whether you're just hoping for bigger and better things with them or through them, you'd have to say that this week is part of the forward plan, with delivery from the second half of next year. Gemini. This new Scorpio cycle is about work and health, and it takes you into November. It begins in earnest now with the new moon, but the November workload and well-being agenda is hinted at this week. Transits in Scorpio in the 6th house of your solar chart suggests that you will not be able to separate your workload and your work ethic from your concerns about your health, fitness, or mental health for a few weeks. This is a short-term transit, though, and this flurry of factors in Scorpio will be in and out of your life by the time you get towards the end of the year. As we're talking about your workload, your daily routine, your work ethic, and the rest of it, it's also worth looking at what's happening right at the top of your chart. And you're being shown that there is an end point to this cycle when one half of you is playing a waiting game, dealing with extremely heavy restrictions, barriers and barricades, and the other half of you is looking for a way to escape from it. Sometimes this shows up as two separate and very different jobs. Sometimes it's a way that you handle your profession, your academic career, or your unpaid calling. Saturn and Neptune won't be there forever. They're out of your life in 2025. And actually, Neptune is at the final stages. So with all these questions about how to work, why you work, when to work, and how much time you should allow yourself to escape from it all, you may want to know that this does in fact have a deadline. The other thing about your chart this week that's quite different is the stellium in Aries, which rules your friends, your social life, and all sorts of groups, whether they are communities online or friends in the real world. This is another big growth area for you next year. In fact, I've just been doing your horoscope for 2025, and it looks as though what you're creating now lands somewhere really interesting next year and also in 2026. And I would describe this as a holiday from reality, or a vacation from what you would call normal life. It will involve one of the friends or groups showing itself now, and you're quite right to want to aim higher next year because anything is possible. You have Chiron here, so getting away with what other people say should not happen or could not happen actually is the norm. Chiron also hangs around in your zone of friends and groups in 2025. The other thing that's happening with your social life, one particular friend or a club, team, or society, is karma from 18 or 19 years ago. That is why one situation keeps boomeranging in front of you. It never really goes anywhere, but the boomerang will stop in January 2025 when at last the North Node moves out of this zone of your chart. This is already hinted at, perhaps, as you realise this just can't go on repeating forever. But long term, you'll be very pleased that you persisted with some groups or friends, as the payoff for you, as I mentioned, will be that holiday from the real world. Cancer. Your ruler, the moon, is new in Scorpio this week. The world of children, babies, teenagers, and millennials begins to draw your attention even more. And with Mercury also in Scorpio, it's a hot topic, which you will see on the telephone, in the post, or by email. Maybe too in the news. Perhaps another child is on the way, or there are questions about your existing children. These may revolve around a son's school or a daughter's degree, for example. When we go to the chart and look at what's going on, we also find Diana in Scorpio. Now that's quite interesting because this is a symbol of feminism, independence, and freedom. Diana did not want children, and nor did she want a husband. So here we find her traveling through the zone of your chart that rules intimate relationships, courtship, the bedroom, and also sons, daughters, stepchildren, and the rest. So either you or the other person concerned really has a big agenda here, and it's very much about space. The other thing that's happening in your chart, which nods to next year, just around the corner, is the huge lineup in Aries in your zone of success, position, ambition, and mission. This is definitely about not just 25, but also 26. And everything that you're gathering together now will put you on a firm course next year where you do not have to live in the real world, where your job, your unpaid work, or your academic career is concerned. The reason for this is that Neptune, the planet of unreality, will go into this zone of your chart in 2025, and it's really being set up now. Sometimes you find with this transit that you end up with two different positions, one of them real world and the other one not real at all. Or you can end up with one career, one course, or one voluntary role, which seems to split itself into two for you. One part is normal bread and butter, and the other one is the cake. When people talk about that this week, or you begin to start thinking about it, remember that everything is being laid out next year right now. Therefore, it's worth your time and energy to invest a bit more thought in what others might say is in another land or in another sphere or dimension for you. Neptune's wife, Salacia, is right here as well. She was in traditional mythology his partner in the sea and the ocean and on the seashore. So this really feels as though you're already halfway there. Next year, you will be given the opportunity to depart what is known altogether, at least for half the time, and Salacia is the entree to that this week. The other thing that's happening in your chart this week is also a nod to the future, as you will relaunch your title, reputation, or image in the second half of 2025 to your total advantage. A little bit of that is being laid out for you this week. Leo, your family relationships, flatmate relationships, house, apartment, or temporary accommodation will be shaped by what happens this week. The new moon in Scorpio is a new beginning. The negotiations and signatures have already taken place or may be about to fall into place. Your mother, father, brother, sister, and other close relatives, either here or in spirit, will be an ongoing talking point. One of the reasons for this is that you have such a lineup in Scorpio, including your ruler, the sun, and this sign traditionally rules the family circle, but also your house, your apartment, your hometown, and your homeland. This is a short-term transit, but there is another story going on here, which, if you have factors in Cancer in your personal birth chart, suggests that this is bigger than it first looks. So from the second half of 2025, if you do have factors in Cancer, you will be in a position to move, dramatically renovate, invest in real estate in a new way, or develop a completely new relationship with your town or your country, and the extended family circle too. If you don't have anything in Cancer or you just don't know, then you can still look at the next week or two as a time of important discussion with and through the family and about your house, your apartment, your town, or your country. The lineup in Aries this week is also pretty obvious. One glance at the horoscope, and it looks as though you are on track for extensive and ambitious travel in a completely different way next year, or even relocation or emigration by 2026. All of this is hinted at with this stellium in Aries in the 9th house of your chart, which rules foreigners and foreign countries. Even if you stay put, Leo, this week will nod towards the future in terms of you being online and yet with one foot in another part of the world. With Chiron also in Aries at the moment, there is a big focus on getting away with what other people say is outrageous, impossible, unthinkable, or beyond the pale. And you've already done that to some extent with your involvement with foreign people or foreign countries in your life. Well, there's more to come. This week is really about setting up the future. And by 2026, you would be firmly established in another country or with another language or culture to the point where it feels as if you are taking a holiday from the real world. Virgo. This Scorpio cycle that I've been talking about for you rules cousins, but most importantly, brothers and sisters. It also rules short trips and the way that you get around and the written and spoken word. Now, be it siblings, Uber, Substack, or the media, this week we'll see a new beginning, and it's big. They can overlap, so the situation with your brother, for example, can have an impact on your travel or your commuting. Could be your sister, could be a tour of the UK, could be AI or artificial intelligence overlapping. All these Scorpio patterns tend to nod towards that. None of it's particularly life-changing or long-term, but while it's here, it does matter. The other thing about your horoscope this week that's so obvious to you, it's almost not worth mentioning, is the financial decision making. This is going to continue backwards and forwards until January 2025 when you sign off from it. The reason for this is that you have karma to collect or pay out from life as it was 18 or 19 years before. The long-term picture of your money, your house, your business, your apartment and or your charity is completely different. It begins next year, and this week is part of setting that up, because eventually you will be in a different space, almost a bubble, insulated from reality and cushioned from it too. In fact, the new life financially from next year and for many years into the future will enable you to live a life very detached from what most people would call normal or regular banking, earning, saving, spending, and the rest. So a lot of the thoughts that are at the back of your mind this week are actually going to land somewhere. The reason for this long-term escape from the real world financially or with property is the arrival of Neptune in Aries next year. This week, his wife Salacia is there in the same chart sector, and as she is also associated with holidays from reality, we might say that you're already part of the way there. What you really need to do most of all, though, according to your chart, is to see the end of a repetitive, circular or stuck situation, which will be out of your life from January 2025. At that point, the North Node will leave Aries, the South Node will leave Libra, and the finance and property sectors of your horoscope are finally going to be cleared for decisions and actions which actually change things. That's not too far away now, and it's worth thinking about this week. Libra, the next few weeks will accent your financial, business, or property progress over the next few months, thanks to a new focus on the Scorpio and Taurus axis of your chart. Both are fixed signs, but you have to unfix the fixed with money or home, your company, business, or charity on this cycle. Take your time this week. Fortunately, you also have clear communication with Mercury in Scorpio, so do the reading, put things in writing, articulate the price tags, and so on while you can. Long term, you still have an unpredictable, erratic, and quite radically different financial cycle that has been like this with you since 2018. The stop-start nature of every radical change has already thrown you twice. It's neither negative nor positive, but it has profoundly altered the way that you have come to think about things like business, the mortgage, rent, and the rest, income too. This week, you're made aware of that thanks to the forthcoming opposition between Mercury and Uranus. You have been here before. In fact, you've been here often since 2018, and you are quite used to having a mini revolution every time it happens when you begin to hang a price tag on being independent and being free. This is going to happen again, and while you are sorting out the numbers this week into November as well, you may also be preparing for a final decision next year, which would make you completely independent. This may be independence from the bank, from somebody that you are involved with in terms of property, and so on. The other major story this week, and it may cross over with that message, is your partner. And this may be, for example, your husband or wife or a professional partner, as much as your other in a duet. There is a suggestion here that 2025 is already shaping up even with all that you talk about or do at the moment. And ultimately, you will be in a completely different space with this person or without them, as a high percentage of people born under your sign are going to sign off from a partnership by January 2025. In other cases, you're more than ready to take a new partnership on. The astrology says either way, it's a dramatic rebalancing of the seesaw between you and somebody very important. Be it professional or personal, this double act or duet will take you into uncharted waters next year, which are like nothing you have ever experienced. All of that is hinted at this week. And even though there are some people who are very down to earth around you, who consider your current situation to be too unreal or too far removed from reality, they couldn't be further from the truth, as actually that's where you're headed. And from 2025, the situation with your other half or the other side will be like a vacation from reality. Scorpio. Well, the focus of attention now is you, quite obviously. Your name, your face, your body, your packaging, and your profile, your reputation and physical appearance. If you have anything in Aries in your natal chart, in the first house of self-promotion, then you can double that message, as November is also very much about a relaunch, and it's important. Despite the current rebirth, if you do have Aries factors or the evolution of a new portrait or brand, you may want to refocus in November. Even if you don't have Aries factors or you don't know, it's important to note that this week it's not narcissism to spend a lot of time thinking about yourself. Sometimes your chart just sends you in that direction. Looking at how you are seen online is part of the package, perhaps thinking about your title, your reputation, all of that. Mercury going through Scorpio and the Sun too will very much help you. The other thing about your horoscope at the moment is the stellium in Aries, which is in your sixth house of workload and well-being. Daily work, daily routine, your health, your mental health and physical health, and every single detail of every single day. You can't really avoid getting to grips with this in a new way, with this kind of pattern in your chart. And your eyes are drawn to next year, as from 2025, it looks as though you could be in a completely different situation. Many Scorpio people will retire, resign, take on a new role, become promoted, job share, be enrolled in a new course, and so on. It's not just about the work. It's also very much about how you are physically and mentally. And this has increasingly become a concern for you over the last year or two. The reasons for this are pretty simple. You are in a cycle that can only happen every 18 or 19 years. It keeps things on a loop, and that is why you seem to keep on repeating the same scenario or dealing with the same people doing and saying the same things, particularly in matters of well-being, fitness, food, drink, medication, and the rest. This ends in January along with the nodal cycle. For the moment, what you're being shown this week is the prospect of a very different kind of lifestyle next year, and in fact in 2026 as well, when you would take both feet off the ground and lose yourself in a different space altogether. You can see why this cycle is so much associated with retirement, but also with a career where you get to take a holiday from everything, even though you're being paid to work. Discussions, ideas, thoughts, and cosmic clues will circulate this week to help point you in that direction. While you are analysing yourself online, you may want to bear that in mind, as of course the internet is the front line of your name and your face, and that is very much involved with what is happening work-wise or academically next year. Sagittarius. Well, all this activity in Scorpio, one sign behind you, points to secrecy and privacy, sensitivity, and the need for solitude. It may involve religion. So, for example, you're Jewish, or spirituality. So maybe you've been swayed by Buddhism. At the moment, your Lenormand card is pointing to some sort of Bible. So this may be a self-help book, a tarot book, or similar. Your personal preference for what makes you tick on the inside is the key to this week, and your private relationship with yourself, which usually emerges in dreams, meditation, tarot, prayer, astrology, mediumship, therapy, and other navel-gazing pursuits, is more important. This is only a short-term transit and it's not going to change your life. However, it will pick up on things which are far more important if you have Pisces factors in your birth chart. Sagittarius, if you do have factors in that sign, the sign of the fishes, then everything that's happening as October ends and November begins is far more momentous than first appears to other Sagittarians, because quite frankly, you are going to relaunch yourself on the inside. This may be with a therapist, with some sort of Bible or good book, as I've mentioned, or maybe just hypnosis and dream interpretation, but it's around the corner. The other big pointer to your future this week is the stellium in Aries, which rules courtship, the bedroom, children, the next generation, heirs, spares, and pretenders to your throne. You're being shown already something which bears no relationship to reality whatsoever. That's thanks to the transit of Salacia through this zone of your horoscope. Salacia has a reputation in astrology for bringing everything and everybody that is on some level a departure, a way out, an alternative, and so on. Nothing has really become concrete for the long term, though. That will happen next year. And you will find that through a son or daughter, through the world of intimate relationships, or perhaps just through the world of children, you're being led towards something that is, as I said, a total departure. The clues to that circulate this week. Meanwhile, there is a repetitive, stuck situation involving just these kinds of relationships or just this kind of younger generation, which will break and end next January. You have been going around in circles with this for a very long time. Every time you think you're getting somewhere, you are led back to the beginning, and the same script is replayed, no matter if you have been seeking to adopt, trying IVF, or in a complicated relationship with somebody where you both have very different views on sons and daughters. There are many scenarios, and it depends on your personal birth chart, but this lineup this week for you tells you that everything here at the end of October and start of November is actually about next year. And the ultimate decisions that come by 2026 will owe a little bit to everything that was at the back of your mind this week. Capricorn, there's a group around you. It may be a book group, a website forum, a netball team, an orchestra, where one or more people are still talking or pursuing a paper trail or a chain of emails. Keep an eye on the unanswered questions that are generated by networks, teams, clubs, and other assortments of people who are in your world, as a big decision is coming on this new moon. The group may be Greenpeace or something completely different. If you're a Capricorn like Michelle Obama, then it's obviously the Democrats. However you're affected, the time to talk is now, and you may hear news this week that points you in a very different direction with a friend who is part of the group or on the fringes of it. All of this is showing up in your chart, and in addition to that, if you have anything in your personal birth chart in Aquarius, there's more to this than meets the eye, because the biggest transformation possible in 248 years is coming with your social life, your friends, and the group, and it will be obvious to you by February next year. Even if you don't have anything in Aquarius or you just don't know, it's still true that this week is about friends and groups and how to respect the independence and freedom of one person in the mix, or even your own need to have no commitment. Diana is showing up in Scorpio in your sector of friendship, clubs and teams, and she is a long-lasting icon in terms of feminism, female freedom, and female wild spirit. So not everybody in and around this group is a team player. In addition to this picture of the heavens, also this week, you're being shown possibilities for the future that are very different for you in terms of your four walls and the roof over your head. Maybe you already know this and are planning for it next year. What you are being shown, Capricorn, is the possibility of a situation domestically with accommodation or real estate, which is a way out, an alternative, a total escape, and so on. Neptune's wife, Salacia, is in the mix, and she is a symbol of everything that is otherworldly. So is her husband, Neptune, and he moves into your sector of real estate, property, renovations, home redecoration, and so on next year. Where you ultimately end up depends on your personal birth chart. But if you have anything in Cancer, then the second half of 2025 will reward you so many times over in terms of where you live and how you live as well. Aquarius. If you have a full-time or part-time job, a crucial career issue will turn up by November. It may be your boss, client, colleague, or professional rival who starts the conversation or restarts it. This has a domino effect on your career, your status, and your success. This is a really good time to do some homework and be strategic. Mercury and the Sun, together in your solar 10th house of success, show you who and what matters most. The professional stage is set now with this stellium in Scorpio, because so very many people around you have Capricorn factors in their charts, and November is a huge sign-off for them professionally or academically, with one big moment near November 19 and the last agreement by the 7th of December. So it's not just your chart, it's the charts of those around you as well. This week, we also see the beginning of a major message about 2025 in terms of the media or the internet, and perhaps you're already halfway there. You may, for example, be looking at deadlines in 2025 or thinking about final outcomes by 2026. You're quite right to do so, as you are feeling your way into quite an astonishing new cycle when the internet itself will become a kind of Hollywood version of the old reality. And that's putting it mildly. In fact, even Hollywood hasn't fantasized about what's coming. For you, this may be anything from exploring AI to losing yourself in a new version of online altogether. It's hinted at very gradually over the next 7 days. If you have anything in Gemini in your natal chart, then this is going to be big for you, and you are already backing yourself in the right direction. Sometimes the world that is on offer is not the internet, but the media. And that is also very true for you this week. In other cases, you're more interested in old-fashioned ways of being heard or read. If you do have Gemini factors, this is going to change your life, and it will change your life for many years. Even if you don't, or you don't know, this week is still not a bad time to get a pen and paper and start mapping out what you would like to happen with your digital world next year, and also with any media involvement at all. Pisces. This building Scorpio cycle, which begins this week and takes you to November, will strongly influence how you feel about your foreign involvements, a trip or move, or a connection to somebody from another country. It will also trigger issues for many Pisces people with publishing, the web, education, and academia. Mercury here suggests rolling news, and you have key questions. So this is about globalization and multiculturalism for some of you, or academia. In other cases, it involves a foreign language or accent. Any immigration, visa, and residency issues will be resolved by November if they began in October, according to your chart. Mercury doesn't have long to go before he delivers his final message. So while your eyes are on another part of the world or the people who come from that other part of the world, you're also starting to gradually think about a sign off with money or property, business or charity. And your horoscope suggests that the sign off will be January 2025. At that point, all the repetition and the long circuit or loop that you have been on for such a long time will stop. Going forward into the future, 25 and 26 are being decided by a lot of the thoughts that you're having at the moment. And one of those thoughts is about a financial or property existence, maybe a business existence, which has absolutely nothing to do with the real world at all. It's very Piscean, and in fact, you're being pulled towards it this week. You're quite right to look at alternatives. That's the way your horoscope is headed. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch up with you again next week.